What's going on, everybody? And in today's video I'm going to be ranking every single 2023 Pro Motocross track in MX vs ATV Legends. The only 2022 version I'll be doing is Southwick, and that's simply because I think that's the only older version of the track that is better than the newer one. Also, this list is completely my opinion, so my favorite track might be your least favorite, your favorite track might be my least favorite, so just keep that in mind. But put your list down below, let me know what your top tracks are. And other than that, let's just get right into the video. So coming in at number 12, dead last place. This may be a surprise to some people, I'm not too sure. This is High Point. But anyways, High Point is my least favorite track in this game. I never enjoyed it in All Out, never enjoyed it in Legends. Something about all the off-camera corners just don't seem to work whatsoever in this game. There is a couple cool spots on the track, of course, like the massive triple, or if you want to launch into this corner and then launch back down the hill. That's really the only couple things I enjoy about High Point. The layout just doesn't really seem to work for me in Legends or even in All Out, but when I play this track on Reflex, it's a different story. But yeah, for some reason, Legends, High Point just doesn't work for me. Let me know what you think down below, but I think this is the worst Pro Motocross track in Legends. I wouldn't care if it never comes back, and I never really care to do another race on. I just don't enjoy it. So number 11, we have Spring Creek or Millville. Every track from here on out, in my opinion, is a good track. High Point is the only bad one on this list. The reason why I have Spring Creek at second last, I just never find myself wanting to play it over other tracks or really caring to come back to it. It's not a bad track. It's got a bunch of really different rhythm sections like the rollers, going up and down the hills. It is a little slow and sluggish going up the hills, but this little split lane section is god awful. It's the one part of the track I really actively dislike. In the 2023 version, something with the pre-built ruts, they are maybe a bit too rough or not big enough. They don't seem to hook you in as nice as they do on other tracks. One cool thing about Spring Creek is there's a lot of different big lines you can hit, but they're kind of difficult and they're not that satisfying. The finish line one though, that's pretty cool. Everything else about this track, pretty straightforward. Not a bad track, just don't really enjoy playing it over others. I knew Spring Creek was going to be in my bottom 3, but I think second last is where it belongs. At number 10, we have Shugall. This track basically is an improved version on Millville in my opinion. The pre-made lines and berms are a little bit nicer. Going up the massive hill is more satisfying. It's a very fast track, and I think the slow sections on Shugall are better than Millville. There's not too many different line choices, but I do like launching into the sand section, and I do like this back section also. This little tight S-bend section is also kind of satisfying. Usually I hate those types of things in Legends, but it works pretty well on this track. There's nothing that stands out to me on Shugall. I do enjoy playing on it, but like I said earlier, there's other tracks that I prefer to play. I love the finish line section with the rollers, that's really fun. But my god, I hate this little split lane slow section before the finish line. It is complete AIDS, hate it, don't know why it exists in real life. And in my opinion, it's the one thing that really wrecks this track for me. But everything else, it's pretty good. Shugall number 10, I think it belongs in the bottom 3. Coming in at number 9, we have Loretta Lynn's. This one may be a bit controversial that it's not last because it's definitely the most simplest track on this list, but in my opinion, sometimes simpler is better, and I think Loretta Lynn's is a perfect example of that. The roller or whoop section, whatever that is, that thing is gnarly. The pre-made ruts and berms are pretty good. Overall, this track is very fast with a very few amount of slow sections. It just has such a nice flow to it. It doesn't have necessarily any massive jumps or any elevation at all. It does have a wall jump, and I am a big fan of wall jumps, and I'm also a big fan of launching into sections. This track just has a bit of everything besides elevation, and I quite enjoy it. There's really nothing bad about this track. I don't think it does belong any higher. I think the bottom 4 is the right spot for it. I have no problem doing countless laps on this track without getting bored. It's just a super simple and fun track to ride on. So coming in at number 8, we have RedBud. I know this is going to be everybody's favorite track. Everybody always loves RedBud. I hated this track in All Out. In Legends, I think it's a good one. In the 2023 version, it had a new layout change, which was really needed for this track. Usually I hate off-camber corners in Legends, but RedBud does them very well. They have nice, big-ass pre-made berms, ruts, so they work really well. The new section is really good. I think it's better than the old layout in my personal opinion. The new triple or old Lorocco's Leap, whatever it was called, I think it's way better on this 2023 version of RedBud. It's a pretty fast track and there's really nothing wrong with it. I just prefer other tracks. I guess I'm not a huge fan of the split lane before the finish. A lot of split lanes don't really work for me in Legends, or at least on these tracks. And that one before the finish line, not my favorite. But overall, it's a pretty good track. I could see you putting it higher, but I don't really think you could put it any lower than number 8. But it's definitely anywhere in the top 8. I think it's a good pick. Thunder Valley comes in at number 7. I originally had this track in my top 3, but it slowly got bumped down after I kind of realized it doesn't really have all that much. It's basically a pretty fast track. It doesn't do anything wrong in my opinion, but essentially it is kind of a very basic track. There's maybe 2 big looters on the track, which are very fun, but everything else is kind of very basic, I would say. In my opinion, Thunder Valley is very similar to Loretta Lynn's, except with a lot of elevation. That's probably a very weird comparison, but again, there's nothing really crazy on this track besides a couple booters. Essentially, Thunder Valley is going up a hill, going back down a hill. The pre-made berms and ruts, in my opinion, make this track. Without them, it would be way lower down this list. So Thunder Valley, number 7, pretty good track. Did have it in my top 3, but I bumped it down. I changed this list around like crazy with all the tracks besides the bottom 3. So Thunder Valley, number 7. So at number 6, we have Iron Man. This track could really go anywhere in the top 10. I did have it lower, I had it higher, and I settled on number 6. One of my favorite things about Iron Man is obviously the uphill triple and then jumping back down. Sweet jump. But also the wall jump is my favorite in the entire Pro Motocross series. I love wall jumps and Iron Man has the best one. Super satisfying to hit. But other than those 2 sections, there's nothing too crazy about the track, obviously. Everywhere else is very bare bones basic, but those 2 sections really are super fun to ride on. In my personal opinion, I think the old layout of Iron Man from a couple years ago is better than the current one. That's just my personal opinion. I think if they went back to that, this track would be a couple spots higher possibly, but overall I think it's middle of the road or towards the best of the tracks. It's definitely not a bad track. It does not belong anywhere near the bottom in my opinion. Iron Man is very solid, and the pre-made berms are good on this track. Again, overall this track does everything very well. So Iron Man at number 6. At number 5, we have Southwick. Now this is the 2022 version of Southwick, not the 2023 version. And simply that's because I think the older version is better. The newer version does a couple things better, like it makes the pre-made berms and ruts a little bit bigger and deeper, which I think is good. But in my opinion, they made the 2023 version just way too rough, and it's way too bouncy and way too slow. Not as fun to ride on as the 2022 version. When this track first came out, I was in love with it, but as I kept playing it, I realized it was just way too rough, and that's why I like the 2022 version better. It's the same layout as it's always been, but it is just way more smoother and fun to ride on in the older version. If I was ranking the 2022 version of Southwick, it would probably go in the number 8 or 9 spot, but I've always had a soft spot for Southwick. It's one of my favorite tracks of all time, and the 22 version belongs to number 5. If you put it any higher, I wouldn't blame you. Any lower, I don't think I'd blame you also, but it's definitely not the worst track in the game. If you put terrain deformation on max on Southwick, it gets super gnarly and can be quite fun even with the UTVs. So at number 4, we have Hangtown. This easily could have been number 1, 2, or 3. It took me a very long time to decide the top 4. Nothing wrong with this track whatsoever. It's got a good amount of roughness. The pre-made berms and ruts are super nice. Lots of elevation. The off-camber turns and corners are really nice. This track has a really good flow. Lots of big-ass jumps. It's got some top speed, low speed. This track pretty much has everything you could want. The top 4 tracks, in my opinion, are all personal preference. For me, I just find myself playing Hangtown a little less than the top 3 tracks. That's really all it comes down to. I do wish that Hangtown still had that really big 150-foot jump. Still has a pretty big jump, but I think that maybe could make the difference here. Like, it's very slim pickings. Got to be very nitpicky in the top 4. All super good tracks. I did have Hangtown at number 2 originally. Overall, I think I have to put it at number 4. It does have a wall jump, which can also be really fun. As you know, wall jumps are my favorite thing in Legends. For whatever reason, they just make my cock go hard. I don't know why. So yeah, Hangtown at number 4. That's where it's going. At number 3, we have Unadilla. I really wanted to put this track at number 1, but for some reason, this is the only track that they have not updated to be like the real life tracks. After the sky shot, that section still goes right, left, and then up the hill. But in real life, they just went straight down the sky shot and then up the hill. I'm not sure why Unadilla is the only track they haven't fixed the layout of yet, because every other track, they fixed it about a week or 2 after release. Unadilla, for some reason, still is the same. And that is the only reason this track is not number 1, is because I hate that section after the sky shot. I really hate it. It just slows the track right down when you don't need to be doing that. But the finish line jump on Unadilla is so fun. It's the best one on any of the tracks. The sky shot's super awesome. The screw you section feels really nice. The pre-made berms and ruts are perfect on this track. Again, really all it comes down to is personal preference. This track would be number 1, but like I said, that one section just bumps it down for me. I gotta be really nitpicky with the top 3. I have been Unadilla quite a few times in real life, so maybe that's why I have some bias towards it. But I think the layout's awesome, and there's no way anybody hates this track. It is phenomenal. It kind of has a little bit of a wall jump, more so a launch, and that feels really nice. The track is almost perfect, but again, that one section bumps it down to number 3. And I think it's probably in a lot of people's top 3s also. That's just what I think. So yeah, Unadilla at number 3, that's where I'm putting it. This is probably the most controversial pick, I have a feeling. Fox Raceway at number 2. I was so close to putting this number 1, but I'm going to stick with number 2. This track has one of the best flows in the game in my personal opinion. It's got a wall jump, it's got rollers, big jumps, high speed sections, downhill, off camber, good pre-made berms, lots of lines to choose from. This track basically has everything, but for some reason I feel like a lot of people don't enjoy this track. That could be just in real life though, but Fox Raceway in Legends is basically my favorite track. It's pretty much a tie between this track and number 1. I can't think of any bad thing about it. Maybe that the color of the dirt could be different, but that's the most nitpicky thing ever. And Fox Raceway is probably my most played track in Legends. All of the jumps feel so satisfying to scrub. The developers did a really good job remaking this track. It is perfect in my opinion. I wouldn't change anything about it. I knew from the get-go that Fox Raceway would be in my top 3. I never questioned it to be any lower. It also has one of the best sceneries in my opinion. Fox Raceway and Thunder Valley are probably the 2 best looking tracks in terms of scenery and aesthetics around the track. I do have a feeling I'm going to get some flack for this, but hey, Fox Raceway number 2, you can't convince me otherwise. This track is amazing. The best pro motocross track in MX Racing ATV Legends is Bud's Creek. I knew that this track was going to be in my top 3. Took quite a while to decide, but ultimately Bud's Creek is number 1. May have some bias, I guess, because I went there this year in real life. But Bud's Creek, in my opinion, is just perfect. It's got elevation, off camber corners that are built beautifully with the ruts, big jumps, fast sections, slow sections, booters, roughness. This track does everything perfectly. There's some big lines. There's just nothing wrong with this track whatsoever. I've always been a fan of Bud's Creek, but the 23 version in Legends, it's just perfect. Really nothing much else to say about it. It looks beautiful. I love launching off this one giant hill down into the corner. It's so fun. There is one tiny section that's a little bit off compared to how it was in real life, but it's such a small part. But yeah, I don't really know what else I can say about Bud's Creek. It's perfect in my personal opinion. Let me know what your list down below may look like. If I'm completely wrong or right, so let me know down in the comments what your list will look like. But other than that, I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, take care.